We've all been waiting for the moment when fingers would be pointed, and it took getting to the end of the trial for the defense to finally point their finger at Chad and wag it at him in shame. Today we're going to be talking about closing arguments, specifically the defenses and some of the highlights of them. Hello Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa, which is behind me, and Roscoe P. Coltrane, our mascot, is sleeping under it in his own private little sofa, and my name is Paul. Now, as you heard in my little intro, we are going to be talking about the Lori Daybell trial, specifically the defense closings. And the way this video will work is I'm actually just going to use some of the tweets from Nate Eaton. He's with East Idaho News. If you're not following him, make sure to follow him on all platforms, not just for this case, but for his exceptional journalism and pretty much everything he does. And specifically this case, he has been with it from the very beginning, chasing Chad and Lori down all the way to Hawaii. So we're going to use his live tweets that he did during the closing arguments as some talking points. And what I'll do is I'll put them on the screen, we'll review them, and then we'll go from there. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now we're going to start first with kind of like toward the end of Wood, the state's closing. And so on the screen you can see here, we're going to start toward the bottom here where Nate is tweeting, and he says, you know, Lori Vallow gets Tylee's money, she gets JJ's money, Chad and Lori get Tammy's money. What does your reason and common sense tell you? You've seen what happened to her children, what happened to Tammy. She never reported the children missing. She lied and lied and lied and lied about where they were, and while she lied, she kept collecting the money. Now we're at the top one here. What does justice for these victims require? It requires a conviction on every count. And then he says that they display photos of JJ and Tylee and Tammy on the screen. You must convict her, and then Wood is done. Now again, yes, to me this all came down to lust, greed, and money and all that stuff, right? And I think that Wood did a good job at outlining these. We'll talk about what, you know, my personal opinions on what kind of conviction I think they could get toward the end. Now before we even get into all this, where I start doing that, you already know these are just my opinions. I'm not a lawyer, an attorney, even though those are the same things. You know what I mean. I'm not a cop, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a shrink. I'm just a guy with a sofa with some opinions. So they're just for that. It's for entertainment reasons only. And I always, you know, urge you to do your own research and come to your own conclusions and share them down in the comment section. Okay, now let's get into the defensive stuff. So right out the gate, we see here on the screen, what the heck is going on? How can this be? Archibald goes on to say, 1 year after meeting Chad, 4 people are dead. Archibald reminds jurors they shouldn't consider Charles's death in this case, as Lori is not facing charges here in Idaho for the death. Now, of course, this one's next up on the roster there, right? It's kind of a sad day when you have to say this is a defense. But right off the bat, I mean, you see how this is going to go. You know, 1 year after meeting Chad, 4 people are dead. I am very curious to know behind the scenes how much Lori was willing to go along with this and how much it was like a girl. If you want us to represent you and you want us to do this, this is what we're doing. This is what the evidence from their perspective shows, right? So let's continue. Then he goes on to say, so Lori wanted to ditch Charles, who makes $400,000 to $500,000 a year, and go to Chad, who makes $30,000 a year, and she wanted to do that for money? Yeah. She did. I think there was something way more than that, because number one, remember, she was basically going to be making her own money off of all of these victims, right? They were making a pretty penny, you know, per month to live a decent life, and to Chad that would have been like, hey, awesome, right? So she was like a gateway in that. They both kind of used each other in that way. But again, for her to have that kind of power, you know, like whatever she was getting out of the Chad situation and then to make the money, I'm like, oh yeah, she would have no problem with that, especially if she felt like Charles stood in her way of like this, you know, narcissistic feeding frenzy she was getting out of Chad. Now it goes on to say, Lori's not in the backyard when Chad and Alex are. She's not coming and going from Chad's property on those days. She's not there. They're calling and texting her. Are they texting her about today's the day we're going to kill some people? Yeah. Basically, right? And their own little perverted, weird language. Yeah, that's what they were doing. You know, I mean, I'm sorry, but that's just how I feel about it. I understand that this is tricky, and this is why this is a complicated case, because she was good at kind of slithering around certain things, but I do think she got caught up with some of the evidence. However, you know, like, oh, she was in Hawaii when this happened. She was in Missouri when this happened. She was here. You know, all this kind of stuff doesn't matter to me, because, you know, when you go in on the conspiracy thing, I'm like, oh no, they knew what they were talking about. They were cloaking it in this religious, I hate to use the word veil, but make no bones about it, they knew what they were talking about. Archibald references Colby's testimony where he said Lori was a good mom. He mentions the phone call from Colby to Lori and says it was so painful. Archibald gets choked up. It's just so painful. Now, here's the thing. We heard numerous people, and Archibald will cite this during closing arguments about everyone. She was a great mom. No one's denying this at some point, right? That they felt this way. However, you can also hear in these same things where, like, even Colby's like, who are you? Now, granted, I get that what Archibald is trying to do is to revert that around to, well, see, this is Chad did this. Chad tainted Lori, basically. You can hear Summer's phone calls, but there's also this painful reckoning, coming to awareness between, like, just Summer and Colby of, wow, my mom was part of this, type thing. Even though another part of that phone call is this, who have you turned into type situation, right? We see this all the time, where people lead normal lives, pillars of community, but either they're, killing all these people behind the scenes, or all of a sudden this comes out. It's not insanity as Letitia Stock would have you think. It's just something that was beneath the surface that, came to be. Archibald talks about the photos that I'm sure are burned into your brain, the autopsy photos, before transitioning to the hair found on the duct tape wrapped around JJ's body. Is that a smoking gun, he asked? No, not at all. Moving up. Why not? Because decomposition fluid was also in that bag. The pajamas were also in that bag. Kids' socks were also in that bag. A kid's blanket was also in that bag. To say Lori is a killer because they found a piece of hair on duct tape, that's not true. Moving up. I would hope all of you who are mothers, I hope your hair is somewhere on your kid's pajamas, socks, or blanket. Now, here's the thing. So this goes half and half with me. Yes, he has a point, right? They found this hair on the duct tape. And the fact, here's my thing, and I believe that Mr. Wood will bring this up too. It was on the duct tape, right? One would expect a hair to be found, right? I get that. I'm not even arguing that part. But again, when you're looking for physical evidence to put her there, accompanied with cell phone pings, the comings and goings, Melanie Gibbs' testimony, this type thing, I think specifically and especially for JJ, I think she was there. I think she was part of it. I can't say that I feel that way about Tylee outside of the conspiracy. I think she conspired on all of these, right? But I don't know if we could prove that she was there for the Tylee situation. Whereas I feel like with JJ, we can definitely prove that. And so we'll get to what I hope they do. But anyways, so he brings this up. He shames the mothers. I hope that your hair is on everything. And I understand what he's doing. He's trying to make this seem normal. And I mean, again, a lot of people are going to feel that way. Like, yeah, our hair is everywhere, right? I mean, just, look around your house real quick. You'll find your hair everywhere. But the fact that it was in that particular situation is of concern. Chad convinced them all. Sorry, kids. Mom died in her sleep. Okay, Dad. You're being asked to convict Lori on killing Tammy when Lori's in Hawaii. You're being asked to convict Lori on killing Tammy when it isn't even a homicide. Moving up. Archibald talks about the prophecy Chad told the neighbors about, that Tammy would die before she was 50. Wouldn't Tammy also know about this prophecy? Couldn't that be why she increased her life insurance? Tammy was still with Chad even though he was so nutty. Oh, nothing like a little bit of victim blaming there. Starting off at the bottom here. Okay, this is what I'm talking about, where some of this is very difficult and slippery, where she's in Hawaii. Yes, but here's my thing with this particular one with Tammy. Do I think she conspired in this? 100%, right? I mean, you saw the text messages and whatnot of, oh, he can never do anything right in relation to missing with the attempted shooting, where is she at and leaving, telling everyone she's gonna, be leaving before she's 50 and dying, all this stuff, right? I mean, what's her name? Lori is shopping for wedding dresses. It's ridiculous. They were planning this up way beforehand. So yes, if you isolate one bit of evidence and say she wasn't there for that conviction, and yes, do I think that they could get like a direct homicide conviction with Tammy? I don't think they could on this one. I think they can 100% come out with conspiracy. I think there's plenty of evidence for that. But no, I mean, I personally do not think that Lori was physically there there when Tammy was murdered. And, he's like, oh, we can't prove it's murder, whatever. I mean, just, again, look at everything surrounding all these people in this situation. Look at who was involved in this. The more I've learned, I definitely think that Alex and Chad are the ones who killed Tammy. I think they did it together. I mean, obviously, Alex had no problem killing lots of people. Archibald says, what's going on in Chad's brain? You and I wouldn't believe it, but some people do. Some people follow religious leaders when others don't. Was it proven he'll kill Tylee? No, but Alex and Chad were in the backyard. Now again, we all knew this was coming. Of course they're going to blame Alex and Chad. I mean, Alex did kill a lot of these people. The children were found buried in Chad's backyard, right? This is a no-brainer who they were going to point the finger at. The kids weren't found buried in Lori's backyard, or whatever, behind whatever situation they had there. So of course they're going to do that, and obviously the evidence shows that Alex, was a serial killer. This is what he did for these people. So to me, this is just a no-brainer that they are going to completely point the finger at Alex and Chad to try and, exonerate Lori from any wrongdoing in the actual murders. Okay, now starting at the bottom, Chad had said, Tylee doesn't like me. I'm guessing Chad and Alex on Tylee. Did they prove that Lori conspired? Of the 15,000 texts they have in evidence, show me one from Lori that says, so when are you killing Tylee? Moving up, Archibald, was it proven who killed JJ? No, but Chad got in a scratch fight with JJ the day before. Maybe those were the scratches on JJ's neck. Alex was only at the gravesite for JJ for 17 minutes. Moving up, that's not enough time to find a board, find rocks, and line them up. I'm guessing Alex had help from Chad. Of the 15,000 texts you have in evidence, show me one where Lori is part of that conspiracy. When are you killing JJ, by the way? There's no such text. Now, while I get what he's doing here and I understand that, on the same note, well, of course they're not going to say that. You read between the lines, right? They were, of course, doing this. She was waiting for JJ's number to go, whichever, with 0 or 100, whatever one means that, it's time to die, right? I mean, she was upset when this didn't happen, and Wood will call this out in his his closing and rebuttal. There's that. But again, the defense is having to work with what they got, right? To me, the text messages throughout this were very damning in regard to conspiracy, in regard to they knew what they were saying and doing without calling it out in the way that Archibald is trying to set the jury up to expect. Okay, now moving to the bottom. She wants to tell the world how much she loves Jesus. She wants to tell you personally she met with him on more than one occasion, but is Lori a leader or a follower of Chad? She so wants to be a leader, but she's not leading anyone. Now you know that just chapped her lipstick when he said that. Let's continue. Following Chad. She thinks Chad is following Jesus, but he's not. He's unfortunately being led by the storm. Not the first guy to be led by the storm. Now, if you're not familiar with this, the storm is the nickname that Chad and Lori gave his member. I know it's really cringy. Go ahead and crawl under the desk and barf in your mouth. I pretty much wanted to fall out when they said this. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe they're referencing his, appendage in the closing arguments and calling it the storm. I am officially done. Okay, so since you're a sinner, be kind and forgiving of sinners. That's the Jesus we know. That's the Jesus that Lori knew. That's the Jesus Lori taught her children about. That's the Jesus Lori knew until she met Chad Daybell. But is that true, really? People can say a lot of things, but if they truly believe that, and I, for one, definitely think something clicked, something happened when she met Chad. But I do not think Chad had some massive, force over her or whatever. I think she willingly went along with this, and I think she saw something in him that she wanted, and she just dove head first. Starting at the bottom, no one here thinks Lori actually killed anyone. That's why she's being charged with conspiracy. So they want you to be convinced that she's part of this plan, that there's a specific plan to kill. If you find her guilty, will that bring the kids back? Nope. Moving up. If you find her not guilty, will that bring the kids back? Nope. You can't be concerned about that. You need to be concerned with following the law and the lack of evidence. Moving up. Archibald, is there anything we've learned about a storm? You hide from a storm. You seek shelter from a storm. Lori spent her whole life protecting her children. Thank you again. Archibald is done. So finishes off with another reference to Chad's, appendage. Very interesting. So here's the thing. No one here thinks that Lori actually killed anyone. I beg to differ. You know, I think a lot of people feel like she was right there with JJ. And regardless if her hands were on somebody or not, I think that she definitely did. She prodded this along. She did not try and stop any of this. And this is what Wood will bring up in his rebuttal and his closing. You know, do you see any text messages saying, hey, maybe we should check on the kids? All these text messages are about the kids going dark and all this kind of stuff and this crazy out there stuff that just circles back around to them being murdered and her being relieved about this and talking about how, you know, oh, Tylee's being nice today, we need to check on her, and JJ, I mean, absolutely absurd stuff. So here's my thought process. I personally think the grand theft is the theft thing's a no-brainer, right? That's just guilty. You know, go on and get that. She's probably got time served on that, right? Then the conspiracy, to me, no-brainer, right? No-brainer. Guilty on all charges. And I think that is where they could get her. Now, when it comes to the murder, I feel like they could easily get a conviction for JJ. The other two, I'm like, I don't know, because there's really not something specifically tying her. Like, we can put A, B, and C here. However, there's plenty of evidence of conspiracy, in my opinion. Now, again, like I said, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know the exact dynamics of what makes what, you know, all that type of stuff. This is just my sofa opinion here of like what I've seen and being like, yeah, if it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, guess what? It's Lori conspiring to murder her family and friends, right? And so that's my thought process on it. Now, I'm recording this early Friday morning around the 12th of May. So right now, the jury is coming back today to continue deliberations. I personally think, and again, none of us know how this will go down, especially, I mean, I don't know either. I think by the end of today, they will have a verdict. I think they needed to gather their wits about them yesterday, get some pizza in their stomach. I think some people are probably holding out. This is so much evidence to go through. And if you have to go through all the conspiracy things to be like, how do we feel about this? It's a lot of stuff to go through, right? And to kind of be able to talk to each other finally and being like, oh, what just happened? Okay. So, but I think they'll come back this evening with a conviction. Of some variety, right? And it wouldn't shock me to not see a conviction on the actual murder charges of a couple of them, but it will surprise me if we don't see convictions for all the conspiracy. Either way, I think she's going to go away for a long time for this, and I think that basically the rest of her life is going to be spent in court cases, right? I mean, this is like the first of, you know, there's several things going on, and then there's appeals and all this kind of stuff. So this is just going to be her new norm. It is what it is, you know. And then of course we have Chad coming down the pipeline, and so that's, you know, to be awaited on. So anyways, let me know what you think down in the comments. What kind of convictions do you think we can get? Do you think we can get guilty on all charges? Do you think some will stick out more than others? I want to know what you think down in the comment section. And once we gather back around here to hear what the verdict is, I'll see you there.